So hit it.
Hello and welcome to This is the Play Sports, the podcast. Back after a little break. It's good to be with you again, Dad. How are you doing?
Doing good. It's good to have the hiatus behind us. We'll invite people to get to the website. We're going to have a new look for our second year.
Yeah, totally. You know what? I think it was, we had a lot going on. For those of you who are interested in our family, and I know a lot of you are because this is a family operation here at thisistheplaysports.com. Sammy and her husband, Nick, gave birth to their child the other week. That was exciting. But other than that, I don't think we've missed really anything in the world of sports. I mean, nothing.
I don't think much has gone on from what I can tell.
And Pluto's messing up with the camera. Awesome. But anyway, it doesn't feel like, I mean, did anything happen with the Jazz? Did anything happen with the University of Utah? Did anything, nothing. I think it was probably a good time for a break, don't you think? Not a lot to talk about.
It was a good time to get the old iPad out and find out and catch up on things. So I think we got 4 quarters worth of stuff to talk about today. So why don't we jump into the first one?
Yeah, let's do it. Of course, we're kidding. There was a lot going on over the course of the last few weeks, for the last months or whatever. Probably the biggest news here locally in our great state of Utah. The Jazz have said farewell and bon voyage to franchise cornerstone Rudy Gobert, shipping him off to the Minnesota Timberwolves in a blockbuster deal, as reported by ESPN. Just a little refresher for you, Dad, in case you forgot. This is the haul the Jazz collected for Rudy Gobert. Okay.
All right.
The Jazz received Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, Jared Vanderbilt, Leandro Balmero, no idea who that guy is. The number 22 pick in this year's NBA draft, his name's Walker Kessler, and 4 additional first-round picks. So if you're counting at home, and we're here at your home, that's 5 players and 4 picks for Rudy Gobert. So what's your gut reaction? Is that a good haul for Mr. Gobert? Did Danny Ainge do well for himself in his first major swing at the helm?
I think my opinion as a 58-year-old man was simply this. The Jazz did not give Rudy Gobert away. They received quite a haul to get him back. I mean, those draft picks, as we know, even the number 1 pick is no guarantee. So you can't guarantee and say those are 4 starters or 4 guys that are
they could be 4 Anthony
roster.
Bennett's, which would be terrifying.
Exactly. Yeah. Or they could be 4 Donovan Mitchells or 4
No
Devin
telling.
Booker's. It's going to be somewhere in the middle, probably, obviously. And they may have to just get lucky to get 1 or 2 good guys out of that haul. But the thing, I like to use the word give, and I think the Jazz did not give Rudy Gobert away, but I think they gave up on Rudy Gobert. And I think that it may have been premature. I don't know if he's to blame for the fact that he was made irrelevant in some of those Dallas games and pulled off to the side, and not really being able to utilize his skills. Was that his fault? I don't think so.
Well, I think as we've come to find out, there were quite a few issues with that team last year. I think it's been pretty well reported. The locker room was in a lot of turmoil. I think Snyder lost the room. There was a certain level of toxicity. Certain guys didn't get along. I think there's probably a lot of weight to those reports between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy not necessarily being on the best of terms.
Right.
And I think it's a shame. I think the writing was on the wall, though. It doesn't surprise me that Rudy would be the casualty, the one that had to go in this situation. I think there are a lot of reasons, maybe even outside of basketball, maybe marketing decisions that go into why the Jazz would maybe prefer to keep Donovan Mitchell. But I think it's too bad. To your point, I think it's a shame, and I think the real tragedy is I don't think we're ever going to really give Rudy Gobert his flowers, so to speak, for the work he did in Utah. I think he was such ask me, I think he was the most important player on their team, on the team during his tenure with the Jazz.
No, I'd agree with you, and I think the fact is you traded a physical specimen like a Rudy Gobert. You decide to get rid of him, and you keep a guy like Donovan Mitchell. Now, Donovan Mitchell is obviously a special player, But is Donovan Mitchell a winner? Is Donovan Mitchell a game-deciding type player? I don't know, because physically he's not. Because he's physically, he's a little bit small. He can slash and shoot. And, he needs to shoot better from the outside, obviously. But that's the part that's troubling is the Jazz traded a physical specimen and decided to keep, I'm not going to say a run-of-the-mill guy, but a smallish guy that, could probably be replaced more readily than a big center that's a rim protector like Gobert is.
The interesting thing is I think there's going to be like another shoe is going to drop in this whole Jazz offseason story arc, right? I was commenting to you before we started the show. It's interesting to note that I saw this on Twitter, so I hope whoever tweeted this is right. And if you're not, I'm coming for you. That the Jazz are one of only 2 teams that haven't announced a free agent signing yet, which to me tells me they're in conversations to make a trade. They're waiting to see maybe how other things in the NBA landscape shape up. There's still going to something crazy is going to happen again. I don't know if that means they trade Donovan Mitchell. As someone who wants to see the Jazz completely turn the page and get into a full rebuild and get on with the next era, I kind of hope they trade Donovan Mitchell. But we're going to see. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the next few days, weeks. I'm really hoping they don't announce anything big while we're talking here on the show, because that would be embarrassing. But leave it to Woj to drop a bomb on us like that.
You got to have a guy that wants to be here, and you got to have guys that want to be here. You just simply can't trade for trade's sake and hope it works out. So there's a lot of research that needs to go into this, because it takes a special kind of player that wants to live in Salt Lake City and play here. Not every guy in the NBA does.
Yeah. And before we move on to the next quarter, I think to that point, I think it's interesting to note that haven't seen a lot of Donovan Mitchell hanging around the Salt Lake area this offseason. So, I don't know. Is there something to that? I don't know. But
New York.
Yeah, spending his time in the Hamptons with the Jenners. So, anyway, moving on to second quarter, touched on a little bit. It seems like, there was a lot of excitement in the NBA the last couple weeks here. We're talking here on July 11th. The start of July was a banger for NBA Twitter. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Russell Westbrook, Damian Lillard, Bradley Beal, all these great, fascinating, moves to be made. What in your mind happens next? What's more likely? Do you think Kevin Durant gets traded, or do you think the Kyrie Irving gets traded? Because it seems to be everybody's waiting on one of those two things to happen.
I sense Brooklyn's going to find a way to get both of them done in the offseason. Kevin Durant, I think, is obviously the high real estate there. He's the guy they can get the most for. There's rumors that he wants to go to Phoenix or Miami. Mm-hmm. And I don't think Miami is willing to give up any of their core guys. I think
they already have a really good team. Yeah.
And I think Phoenix has a good team, too. And Phoenix, trying to figure out what the heck Phoenix is up to. Mm-hmm. But
it's hard because those guys are both really talented, but they've also, I think, proven to be very moody, unpredictable personality types. And I think you can make the case in Irving's for Irving that he's pretty much destroyed almost every locker room he's been in the last few years. So it's like how much do you want to give up for what is sure to be maybe a disaster?
Well, maybe he's acting nutty enough that they trade him straight across for Russell Westbrook, so he could trade one problem for another. But
that seems to be in play, yeah.
And that'd be interesting because Kyrie and LeBron didn't exactly get along after they won their championship in Cleveland. So we'll see how that goes. But I think Durant's going to be the first to move, and I just don't really know if Miami or Phoenix are the two destinations where he'll end up, one of those two. Because they're both young teams that have, they've had great success in recent years. And I don't know if getting Kevin Durant throws them off or if they think that's the final piece. But you can't add that final piece without giving up some pieces.
It wasn't too long ago we were talking about Brooklyn having Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden all on the same lineup. Thank you. My mother is doing a great job producing, hitting the sound pads there. It does seem funny to think about because, I think we expected it to go very well. Those of us who follow the NBA, we thought, okay, there's a lot of offensive firepower here. These guys are going to score 150 points a game. They're going to cruise through the Eastern Conference, and I don't think it could have gone any worse for Brooklyn. So, I mean, what if you're, I should know the name of the guy who's the general manager of that team. I don't. I'm sorry. But I mean, what do you do? Do you tear it all down and just go for a complete rebuild? Do you try to get assets that can compete now? Do you try to get draft picks? How do you feel?
Well, the way the NBA is set up, you really can't trade assets like that for draft picks. You have to take salary on to trade salary. So there'll be some salary increases. Those guys don't want to be there. It's that simple. So you got to,
and they don't want to deal with them either.
Yeah. Then there's going to be a divorce, and whether they get full market value, they probably won't, because when a guy says he doesn't want to be there, automatically teams negotiating against you say, hey, he doesn't want to play for you anyway.
Yeah, what leverage do you have?
So, it'll be interesting. But, I think we saw with James Harden, age can creep up on you very quick. Whatever I just said can creep upon you very quickly. And
but you wouldn't know anything about that, right?
No, I wouldn't.
No.
My ward ball career went downhill as soon as I turned 50.
I think Mom's getting good at anticipating me. She had her finger hovering over the sound pad when I was, cranking up that joke. So.
Yeah, we were ready to go. But, so that'll be interesting to see, because if Kevin Durant makes a slide like James Harden, and then we're still all waiting to see if James Harden purposely played like he was getting old, or if he is getting old.
Well, I think in James Harden's case, all those nights out at the adult entertainment centers caught up to him. All those, he was a known partier, and I think that was something that was suspected to contribute to his decline. It seems like he wants to take it more seriously. He took a huge pay cut to give the Sixers a little more flexibility, to build a more complete roster. I think he's probably aiming to maybe rebuild his legacy there and how people think of him. But again, we're sitting here kind of like in this waiting stage, just waiting for the next thing to happen in the NBA, the thing that's really going to rock the Twitterverse. And I'm excited to see what it is.
I think he's going to be busy. And, I was thinking, what would be good TV right now? Why don't you take James Harden, comb his beard out, and let's see what's in there.
There could be
just a thought.
Some Magic City, the strip club in Atlanta, is known for their wings. There could be some chicken wing bones in there.
Could be a squirrel.
There could be some vermin. Thank you, Mother. There could be. Okay, hit it again. It won't stop. There you go. Got it. And there could be just about anything, really. Maybe there is a championship ring in there that he doesn't need to go. Fine. I don't know who it belongs to. Maybe a dead guy, but
I doubt it. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, hey, it's halftime. Let's take a drink. What's in your cup? What's in your Dickies cup?
I have Walmart soda in a Dickies yellow cup. I do not believe there's rat poison in here.
Yeah, a Dickies cup is a little suspect.
Oh, that's good. Though.
Look up that news story from a few years back. You don't know what I'm talking about. I grabbed a small miniature apple juice from your fridge upstairs, and it's very good. It's very good, and it's good for you.
It's good for you. It's like drinking an apple tree.
Yeah. So moving on back to the game here, so to speak. Third quarter, the other huge breaking news came out, I think probably last week. Pac-12, uncertain future. UCLA and USC are both going to be jumping ship to join the Big Ten in 2024. You covered the Pac-12. You still cover the Pac-12. We covered the Pac-12 here at thisistheplaysports.com. I mean, is this concerning for Utah? Like, if it is, how concerning is it?
It should be absolutely concerning. I mean, the Pac-12 is knocking on death's door, and rumors about Oregon and Washington. If those two schools also join the Big Ten, the Pac-12 is in serious trouble. And, we've talked a little bit about maybe what the Pac-12 should do. Should they be proactive? And I definitely think they should. They're not going to replace the media market of Los Angeles. That's just impossible. But anyone who's traveled in the Pac-12 and seen the games, realizes, USC and UCLA are a little different, but there's not a lot of love in the Pac-12 for football like we have at the University of Utah.
Stanford doesn't draw well. Cal doesn't do particularly well.
The Arizona schools are a little disappointing.
Oregon State doesn't do that well. Arizona State doesn't always do that good. Yeah, so they don't draw particularly well.
So it's different, and UCLA doesn't really draw that well considering the size of the media market. USC's got a pretty solid group of fans that support them, but so let's just say, what should the Pac-12 do as far as being proactive? Maybe they need to try to poach the Big 12. Maybe they need to go after Oklahoma State and Texas Tech and see if they can get
one
them
of those
to join.
Lower tier.
And then
Big
maybe
12
go
teams,
after Baylor and somebody in the Dallas Metroplex area, because so they can get that market too. Maybe invite TCU and Baylor, Oklahoma State and Texas Tech to join the remaining Pac-12 schools. The precarious thing in all this is Washington and Oregon, because if they leave, that doesn't leave a heck of a lot left.
And then the nightmare situation becomes kind of a Pac-12 Mountain West merger that really nobody would be interested in, and the Pac-12 has been a joke for years, and I think, like as you alluded to, if they lose, their last remaining real draws, Washington and Oregon, they're done for. They're barely above Group of Five, really.
And then we talked about, maybe the immediate thing they do is get San Diego State, just because they have a new facility. I realize it's not as big as most Pac-12 facilities, but it's new and it's the Southern California market. You go after Boise State because they're a national name. Don't worry about how many TV sets are in Boise. You're worrying about the national name, and Boise State brings something to the table there. And then, we've talked, I think people need to look at UNLV. That's an up-and-coming city. It's one of the fastest-growing cities in America. They play in an NFL stadium. You forgive some of the academic things. They got to get over themselves academically. Not everybody's Stanford. And so, there's three teams there. I don't know if there's a big difference between Colorado State and Colorado, because Colorado doesn't necessarily pack them in because it's a Broncos town. But you could claim you have the Denver media market a little bit, or Air Force, Colorado State Air Force. But Colorado State has a fairly new facility. So there's 4 Mountain West schools that you could poach. We talked about 4 possible Big 12 teams that they could poach. And that would be a real good scenario. If they did lose Oregon and Washington, that would give them a 16-team league. But like you said, it's different. It's barely above what is a current Group of 5. And then is Utah better off joining the Big 12 with the Arizona schools and Colorado? And you probably have to say yes at this point.
No, exactly. No, I was going to say, you talked a lot about what the conference should be doing. And I think you're going to agree with me here. What Utah should be doing is looking for the next lifeboat out of that conference. And whether that means hitching their wagon to Utah, or to Oregon and Washington, going wherever they may end up, or making a plea to the Big 12 to say, hey, you guys are welcoming BYU. Wouldn't it be great to have this rivalry on your schedule every year? I think that would be a really compelling argument to make to the Big 12. But it's really funny now, because for the last decade and change, it's been kind of like a sense of, hanging over the BYU fans' heads. If you're a Utah fan, you say, oh, we're in the big boy conference. You guys are just stupid independents. And the tables turned really fast on Utah over the course of a week or so.
And it wasn't their fault.
It wasn't. It was just terrible luck. And I think they need to do everything they can to maybe. I think the best play for them would be to try to get into the Big 12. That way, they don't even have to worry about scheduling BYU as a non-conference opponent in the future. They can have that on the books every year. I think that'd be great for that audience. They can see, because BYU Utah is a great rivalry, and I think it'd be great to have that just automatic every year.
Last game of the year, conference game. It
I
could
think
be
that would
implications for bowls or whatever. So
if you're Utah, you have to just be begging anyone at BYU with any sort of voice to maybe forgive them for not extending the hand to the Pac-12 hand, and to help them get into the Big 12. I think that would be really good for Utah. I don't know if it's going to happen. I hope it does, though.
Well, before we move on, too, I think you guys got to remember Utah maybe past the point of having to beg. Utah is a proven.
They've established. They're
commodity.
established. Yeah.
And I think Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah would really strengthen the Big 12.
Utah's going to start the season in the top 5 probably. So
and then you talk about the Cincinnatis and the Central Floridas and BYU and the Big 12's made some smart moves in recent years, and it's a coastal conference. It would be, it goes all the way to Orlando, Florida now, and
my least
West
favorite city in
Virginia.
America. Yeah,
but it's gonna be interesting, and I think that would be a wise move. But I also think Utah doesn't have to beg to get in there. I think it could be a mutual agreement that benefits both parties.
No, totally. So let's jump into final quarter here. I know this is something you've been working on a lot. You've been doing a kind of a content series for the University of Utah celebrating 50 years of Title IX. We were talking about this off mic, and Mom was kind enough to say, hey, save some of this for the air, save some of what you've learned about Title IX. Obviously, the gist of Title IX, equal opportunities for men and women. But I was wondering, tell us what you've learned as you've, done interviews with prominent people in our community who have experienced the benefits of Title IX, all that.
It's been really eye-opening for me, and I was a sports writer for 30 years, and I didn't realize some of the hardships that women had to overcome, that things were definitely not equal. I mean, in the 50 years before that, women were playing 2x2x2 basketball, whatever the heck that is, but, it was more of a zone thing. They were playing 3-on-3, 5-on-5 basketball for women. The AAU and the NCAA only approved that in the early 70s, believe it or not. And the NCAA didn't have a women's basketball championship till the early 80s. And, those are just some eye-opening things. And then facilities and such have been a hardship. And, when they signed the law into effect, said basically anybody that receives federal funds has to create equal opportunities for students, and that includes sports. And the funny thing is there was no money. The law went into effect in 1972, but I talked to a lot of people like Elaine Elliott, who coached the Utes for 27 years. She went to Boise State, and she didn't receive any type of scholarship money until her senior year, which is 1976, 77, 4 years after Title IX went into effect. And that's how long it took for them to get money to give their players for scholarships. And so, there's a lot of good stories out there. There's a lot of pioneering women in the University of Utah community that made things happen. But, there was a wrong there that needed to be fixed. We live in a country that praises equality for all, and in sports there wasn't.
We're not particularly good at following up on that. And
it has to be paid for.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like cash rules everything around me. You probably listen to Wu-Tang Clan, I bet, right?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah, I bet you do. And the money has to be there to create the equality. And I think you see it really kind of distinguished, or really kind of, I'm trying to think of the right word, but really pronounced is the word I'm trying to think of, at the professional level, where the difference between the NBA and the WNBA, as great it is that, these women can play at a professional level in our country, there is a stark difference between the way they're compensated, the way they're appreciated, the way they're treated. NBA, it's a very lavish lifestyle. These guys fly on charter or private jets. If you're in the WNBA, you're flying commercial. You're on the same flight as all the other idiots going to
and apparently
Disneyland.
You can't take certain things into Russia.
That too. You're right about that. But it's funny. These poor WNBA players are kind of frustrated because they see the way the NBA guys live, and they're like, "Hey, we want to fly in private jets too. That would be good for us as professional athletes." And the answer is there's no money. We don't have the resources to do that for you. I heard the WNBA hasn't turned a profit yet in its existence. It's subsidized by the NBA, but it ends up costing the NBA around $10 million every year it's a loss on the book that they take. And it's not the fault of the owners that these WNBA players aren't being supported. It's the fault of basketball fans. It's the fault of the consumers. If they're not willing to support the sport yet, and I think that's a real shame. And nothing's going to change until, us as fans are willing to spend our money the same way we spend on the male athletes.
Well, and in talking to a bunch of people, a lot of them feel that the way things are marketed is how the public will accept it, and I think it's getting better. I think people are finding that the college softball World Series, for example, is good television.
That girl from Hawaii who was crushing like 500-foot home runs is unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean,
they're great athletes.
That's a fun sport to watch, and I think volleyball is growing. They had their highest attendance for their championship, and one of the things I research is, like at Nebraska, they average 8,300 people to volleyball matches, and there's a wait list to get tickets. So it's
and
growing,
Utah does really well
slowly
with gymnastics. The Red Rocks regularly fill the Huntsman Center.
So go figure. So there's potential there. It just probably needs to be marketed better. But if someone knew the answers, they'd fix it right away. But it's an ongoing battle. But Title IX was necessary, and it's far from complete.
Definitely. Well, yeah, definitely. Let's just plug your stories right now. Those stories you're writing on Title IX, featuring, you mentioned some of those people that you're interviewing, Elaine Elliott, my former gym teacher, Lori Parasalvo, available on UtahUtes.com. So go ahead and check that out. We're getting to our parting shots. I think you want to maybe add a little bit on that same note, right? What's your parting shot for today?
My parting shot, she's a friend of both of ours. We worked down at the Hall of Fame Sports Museum downtown, and just want to congratulate Norma Carr. She's our boss down there, and she's finally getting inducted into the Hall of Fame that she spent so much time putting together and promoting, and it's really nice to see her get her just due. She's an absolute pioneer. At one time, Austin, when she coached at Davis High School, and then she jumped to the University of Utah, and she was the head volleyball coach, the head softball coach, assistant basketball coach, and the assistant unofficially, right? Administrator. She helped with, Fern Gardner a little bit. So she's kind of a jack of all trades. She went to Slick and became first female athletic director in the state of Utah. So she's got quite a resume, and she's one of those people. She looks stern, and she comes across sometimes that she's all business, but she is really a sweet lady.
She's good to us.
And so congratulations, Norma.
If you don't know who Norma Carr is, you don't deserve to call yourself a sports fan in the state of Utah. She's, like you said, she's an absolute legend, and we love her. She's great to us. Yeah, we love Norma a lot. My parting shot, I think we touched on a little bit in the first quarter, but I just want to, again, bid adieu to what was a fun era for the Utah Jazz. Excuse me.
Chokes you up.
Yeah, it really does. Oh, that's embarrassing. Yeah, I just get really emotional thinking about this era of the Jazz. That was weird. I think a dust bunny flew into my throat. Anyway, it was really, other than last year, but the year before they were a great team to watch. I loved tuning into every Jazz game. What made it great, not only were they a great team, they had the best regular season record in the NBA, but, there were just personalities on the team that made it hum and were a lot of fun. And I think about, especially two guys in particular, I think about Rudy Gobert, who is now moving on to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I also think about Joe Ingles, who blew out his knee halfway through last season, was traded to Portland. I think there was a lot of hope. I thought there was a chance. I thought it was somewhat in play that he could re-sign with the Jazz as he worked through his injury and maybe, suit up for in those horrible black and yellow uniforms again for Utah. Didn't end up happening. He signed probably a pretty generous deal with Milwaukee. But, I just want to say, those guys made it fun. They were good people. They gave to the community. They were very charitable. I think both of those guys, there's just countless memories you can think of, where they won a game or had a great moment or, or maybe didn't have a great moment. But this last era with the Jazz, with Gobert, Ingles, and Quinn Snyder, who are now no longer with the team, it was great. And I think those guys are going to be remembered very fondly here in the state for a long time.
No, I agree, and I think the one guy, Quinn Snyder, is somebody that they're really going to miss because that guy was a competitor. He never looked like he was having fun.
He was a genius,
but he was passionate about what he did, and it's going to be interesting to see.
Did you know he had an MBA and a Juris Doctor degree from Duke?
Well, I've got that from Utah. And what good's that done me, really?
You could have been the coach.
Yeah, good point. No, he's a genius type guy. He's a good brain, and I was really surprised the Charlotte Hornets didn't go after him harder because of his Duke ties and the fact that he led a team to the best record in the NBA. I don't know if that speaks about Michael Jordan and what he's willing to spend, or
maybe it could be that
willing to give.
Michael Jordan's a UNC guy. Maybe that was a turnoff.
That could have been it.
Yeah.
But to me that just made a lot of sense. But I think the rumor is that he's going to be the next San Antonio Spurs coach after Popovich.
I think you can pretty much Sharpie that to borrow an NCAA tournament term.
So it'll be interesting. But I agree with you. That era of the Jazz was fun, but it's over. And frankly, this next season doesn't look too hot.
It's a little bit of dread. I'm not feeling as excited about the Jazz season as I was the last couple of years. It's gonna be quite the climb. They're gonna have to climb to get back to where they were.
Well, it takes me back to my high school days when they were just horrible. But boy, we loved Ben Poquette and Alan Bristow and the boys, and it was fun.
Get ready to feel that way about.
You could sneak down to the good seats. There was a golden era in some ways.
Yeah, we're gonna feel that same way about Malik Beasley and this Kessler guy. These guys that are gonna be wearing those
I have a feeling most of those guys
are
never gonna play for the Jazz. I think
I'd be surprised to see Pat Beverly playing.
I see Danny Ainge moving them along. So
anyway, yeah. So we'll just see. It's gonna be interesting. So.
All right.
Hey, so good to do this. Let's do this again soon.
We're back, folks. Check the website out. We got kind of a new approach we're going to do, and we want you to check it out. And starting next week, we're going to get our Wheel of Fortune going again and give away some prizes. And so when you get on our website,
and these are going to be personal mementos too. These are things going to have incredibly intrinsic value, and we're going to give them away.
Yeah, it could be
my birth certificate.
Well, we may not part with that. We might, but
stuff like that.
Some stuff that's been in my desk, and when I was in high school and that, my buddies and I had a thing we called Super Scav, and if they were giving away like Daryl Griffith posters, we would take 500 of them home and stuff. So I have a lot of weird stuff like that. So we're gonna pull some stuff out and dejunk my office a little bit, and we'll get some cool stuff. And I don't know, there's a rumor that maybe one of your half-eaten Carl's Jr. burgers might be up for auction too. We'll see.
I'm not willing to part with that quite yet, but we'll see.
Dip anything in barbecue sauce that tastes good.
Check out thisistheplaysports.com. Thanks for tuning in.
See ya.